All right, so today I wanted to talk about this article out of the Financial Post saying Joe Biden is eyeing a capital gains tax as high as 43.4% for the wealthy. So it says Joe Biden will impose almost doubling the capital, actually, it is doubling the capital gains tax for wealthy individuals to 39.6%, which, coupled with an existing surtax on investment income, means the federal tax rates for investors could be as high as 43.4%. This plan would boost the capital gains rate to 39.6 for those earning 1 million or more, an increase for the current base rate of 20%. The the people said on the condition of anonymity because the plan is not yet public, a 3.8% tax on investment income funds that funds Obamacare would be kept in place, pushing the tax rate on returns on financial assets higher than the top rate on wage, salary, and income, they said. Um, the proposal could reverse a long-standing provision of the tax code that taxes returns on investment lower than on labor. Biden campaigned on equalizing the capital gains tax and income taxes for wealthy individuals, saying it's unfair that many of them pay lower rates than middle-class workers. Again, that is such a lie, it's not even funny. And again, the average person's dumb enough to believe it, in that again, how the average person doesn't catch on to how this is complete BS is beyond me. But um, the capital gains tax is a tax on money that's already been taxed, right? Because when you earn an income from a job, that money is taxed. And when you invest, well, you're taking money that's already after tax money, right? So they're lying to you when they say many of them pay lower rates than middle class workers. No, they're lying to you. They're paying way higher rates, like not even funny higher rates. Um, the White House and Treasury Department didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. Biden is expected to release the proposal next week as part of the tax increases to fund social spending for the forthcoming American Families Plan. For people earning a million or more, uh, rates on capital gains could be above 50% for New Yorkers. The combined federal and state capital gains rate would be as high as 52.22%. For California, it could be 56.7. Democrats have said current capital gains rates are largely held on top earners who get their income through investments rather than from wages, resulting in lower taxes for wealthy people than those they employ. Republicans argue that current capital gains rates encourage saving and promote further economic growth. So, what is the reality behind this? The one thing I would say is that a lot of people are saying this is going to be doom for the stock market, which I don't think will be the case. Not because in a free market, or not a heavily controlled state-run system, it would be really bad for the market. But when it comes to the stock market, the government knows that if the stock market crashes, the economy will crash. And people say, like, the opposite isn't always true, in that right now we have a very good stock market over the last year, but the actual economy hasn't been good. Um, so they're not always correlated one to one. But when the stock market goes down, the economy will suffer, like the real economy, like Main Street, right? The average person. The average person will suffer if the stock market goes down, whether they have investments or not, right? In that, again, when the stock market suffers, spending goes down. And the biggest driver of the everyday economy is consumer spending, right? If consumer spending goes down, people will lose jobs, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But on the other hand, it's not necessarily the case. And why is that? Is because, well, I mean, if you look at the last year, the stock market has done very well. I mean, partially because it was down because of people overreacting to the pandemic. And number two, the government pumped an insane amount of money into the economy, and that money, one way or the other, is going to end up back in the hands of the stock market, right? So that's the main reason for it, right? Um, but again, when it comes to the capital gains, again, this is something that, again, people just have absolutely no idea what they're talking about when it comes to this kind of stuff, and the fact that the government is lying to you about this, just goes to show just how far gone things are these days. But the first thing you need to bring up, and again, this is just basic economic knowledge that 99% of people don't understand, is that the average person sees this and thinks, "Oh, this is awesome. We're doubling the capital gains tax. It's going to mean we're going to double the amount of taxes we're going to get from the capital gains tax." And that's not the case, right? This is something that anyone who's taken an economics course should understand, and if they pay attention will understand, in that it's the Laffer curve, right? In that there's an equilibrium point when it comes to taxes. There's an equilibrium point to where, as you raise taxes, there comes a point to where if you continue raising taxes, you're actually going to lower revenue from said taxes, even though you're increasing taxes, right? The average person's dumb enough to think that you're going to get the most amount of taxes from people if you make it 100%. But that's not the case, right? Because if you make it 100%, you're going to get nothing, because people will be like, what would be the point? Um, so this is the problem when it comes to this. They're going to double the cap gains tax. How much more are they actually going to get? I don't know, but it's not going to be double, right? It's not going to be double. And why is that? This is something that should just be basic common sense. The fact that the majority of people can't figure this out is kind of astounding to me. Is that okay? Well, what do rich people do when you raise taxes on them? Well, they do a handful of things. The first thing is, okay, I'm just going to move. I'm just going to leave. In which case you get nothing, which is part of the reason why I bring up when you increase taxes, it doesn't mean that you get that much more revenue. If you double a tax, it doesn't mean you're going to double revenue. In fact, it's quite possible that you could reduce revenue. I don't think they will when it comes to this, but I don't think they're going to get nearly double. Um, what else will they do? They find ways around the taxes, right? So again, this is something, and people say, "Oh, we just closed." There's always going to be loopholes. That's the whole point of the system. The whole point of a state-run system is so rules only apply to certain people, right? Again, the Democrats are all up in arms about gun control right now, but turns out Hunter Biden lied to get a gun on his background check. Are they anyone worried about that? No. His wife broke the law in getting rid of the gun. Does anyone care about that? No. Right? Again, the whole system is designed so that the special interest and um, certain groups of people can do whatever they want. And it doesn't matter who's in power. All the idiots that think, oh, if you just select a socialist like Bernie Sanders, he's going to fix it again. Yeah, the guy who has, what, 3 or 4 houses? Come on. Come on. Um, Again, if you're high up in government, there's probably a 99% chance you're either a bad person or there's so many bad people around you that you're going to be swayed by the bad people. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, right? So anyone who thinks that, oh, if we just got one of these lefty types in there, they tax the rich and they'd pay their fair share. No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't, right? And this is the other problem when it comes to these kind of things too. Another reason that I'm against it, why it makes no sense, is that whenever the left proposes these things, they always make it appear like, oh, we're gonna fix poverty by increasing these taxes or by giving people more free stuff. And it never happens, right? It never happens for obvious because of basic economics, basically. Um, and what ends up happening is, oh, we gotta increase it more, or we gotta increase it more. Like when it comes to this is not going to do anything. This is not going to do anything. It's not going to fix poverty. It's not going to end racism or any of the stupid things that the left is saying it's going to do. If anything, it'll only make the problem worse, right? Because I do think that this will hurt the economy to some degree. But on the flip side, again, the government's just going to print as much money as they need to keep the economy and the stock market afloat, right? So in the real world, this is going to hurt the economy, right? This is going to cost people their jobs. But the government will just print up however much money needs to be printed up to keep things afloat, right? So it depends how you look at it. And here's the other thing. When it comes to capital gains, none of that. I mean, there shouldn't be taxes in the first place. But when it comes to capital gains, that's even more astounding. Like, if you want to make the argument, like, you know, taxes, we should have taxes to provide the bare bones services, right? Again, I still don't think it makes any sense personally, but I can accept that, right? I could accept that. I would be perfectly fine living in a society like that. But if you're going to say that we need to tax money that has already been taxed in multiple ways at 43% and at 56 and 52, you've gone off the deep end, right? And there's nothing you can say to change my mind. Like, absolutely nothing. Like, who in the right mind would want to live somewhere where 56% of your money is taken? Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Right? I mean, you look at New York, they're facing one of the biggest, I think the biggest budget shortfalls out of all the states. Well, how could that be? They have some of the New York City has the of all the places in the states, New York City is the highest tax place. I'm pretty sure of that because they have a one of the only cities that has their own tax, and not to mention the state tax is very high as well. Um, okay, well, why are they facing such a big budget shortfall if they have literally the highest taxes? Right? If more taxes means we can solve all these problems, then why is New York? Again, look at California. California has the second highest poverty rate of any states, but yet they have some of the highest taxes. They have a high state tax. California, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'd be very shocked if they didn't have the biggest gap between the rich and the poor. This is something the left always talks about. If these left-wing policies were the answer to fixing the gap between the rich and the poor, well, why is California the worst state? Right? And they would probably come back with, oh, we just need to go a little further. Well, no. We've been going further for generations now. Has it fixed the problem? No. Is the gap between the rich and the poor bigger now, or is it bigger in the 1950s when we actually had, well, they actually had somewhat of a free market? Well, it's way bigger now. Right? Back in the day, you could live a middle class lifestyle with one person working and have no debt, right? Now, again, this is the other thing people don't understand is that people say, oh, life was so, no, it wasn't bad back then. I mean, as far as technology goes, yeah, that's nice to have. But who in the right mind would not want to be able to easily live a middle class lifestyle on pretty much any job, even like a labor job or, you know, a trade, any of that kind of stuff, and have no debt, like no debt whatsoever? Did anyone have credit cards back then? Did you need to take out 30-year mortgages just to qualify? No. At artificially low rates? Like, no. Um, Nowadays, for the vast majority of people, like, again, how many people do you know that bought a house and not some beaten up old house in some small town? Like, I mean, like an actual middle class house with cash, like that are in like their, under, let's say, 40. No one, like literally no one. I mean, unless you're like a, pro, making, pro athlete or, those are the extreme exceptions to the rule. But I'm talking like an average person. Right nowadays, it's impossible to get by without massive amounts of debt. And the problem's only getting worse, right? More taxes is not going to fix the problem. Again, people are probably saying, well, what's going to fix the problem? Well, the problems we're running into is that governments are putting in policies that de-incentivize productivity, both at a personal level and from a business perspective. Like, and again, like the leftists would argue against this, but they're so insane it's not even funny. I was listening to an interview with a leftist the other day, and he genuinely, with a straight face, argued that having a 20, I don't know what exactly the point was, but let's say a 20% corporate tax rate or a 40% corporate tax rate won't change, like, won't increasing, let's say, increasing the corporate tax rate by, doubling it, whatever it's at. They genuinely believe that it won't hurt business. It won't cost people jobs. They genuinely believe that. And again, like, that is one of the most basic economic principles in existence, right? What you incentivize, you get more of. What you de-incentivize, you get less of. When you tax businesses more, that means they have less money to put back into the business, which means potential business startups are going to be less likely to happen, and successful business startups are going to be less likely to happen, because when you start up a business, one of the most important things is being able to reinvest in said business until you're established. Right? So this is absolutely going to hurt things. Not as bad as what people are saying, but it's not going to help, right? It's not going to help. But like I say, the government's going to print as much money as they need to print to keep the stock market afloat. They will keep rates artificially low to help keep the stock market afloat. They will manipulate things to whatever degree they need to manipulate things to keep it going. And that's why, again, when the lefties always say, well, Obama did this, Obama did that, and it didn't, Obama, had a big stimulus, well, not as big as nowadays, but big at the time, and it didn't cause inflation, or it didn't hurt the economy, or Obama increased regulations, and, well, yeah, but that's because the economy is so artificially propped up, right? People don't, and this is the other problem too, is that you can only artificially prop things up for so long, because what happens is when you're artificially propping things up, you can't just continue to do the same thing over and over again, right? You need more and more and more, right? It's like a drug addict. You can't just keep taking the same amount over and over again. You got to take more, and eventually it reaches a breaking point and everything collapses, right? So again, capital gains shouldn't be taxed at all, like at all. Um, and again, the reason why one of the fundamental reasons why I'm against this stuff isn't that I don't understand where these people are coming from, but I know, because this stuff is so easy to predict, it's not even funny. This isn't going to fix the problems that they think it's going to fix, and when they recognize that, they're not going to admit they're wrong, like a person with actual integrity would do. They're just going to say, oh, we need to increase it more, or we need to increase this tax more, that tax more, we need more regulations here, more regulations there, right? So this is the fundamental reason why I'm against all of this stuff. Isn't necessarily that it may not help to some degree, which I don't think this will at all, and I don't think most of this stuff will at all. But I know that by increasing, you don't help the everyday person by increasing taxes on anyone. Like, it doesn't matter who tax the rich. Again, taxing the rich will not fix anything. For all the idiot socialists out there, no, it won't fix anything. And if it did, well, California and New York, right? California and New York. It's all really, though, you only got to say two words to completely debunk them on that one, really. I mean, obviously you could go into it more, but um, so again, like I said, I don't think that this is going to hurt things as bad as I think, because the stock market it's not a free market thing anymore. Again, people that think that the States is a free market, it's not. It hasn't been for the longest time. In fact, in reality, it hasn't been a free market since the Federal Reserve, but again, that's a different story in and of itself. But they haven't had a free market in the longest time, right? Not in the longest time. Um, for obvious reasons, if I have to go into the reasons why. And again, the other reason why people think that is that the Overton window has changed, and that where the average leftist is on the political spectrum is that the average leftist used to be actually pretty moderate. Like in the 90s, and even during the George Bush years to an extent, the average leftist was pretty moderate. Pretty moderate. But over the last, basically since Trudeau got elected in Canada, I think was a big turning point, both in Canada and in the States, and when Trump got elected as well. Um, Things really changed. Like, the average leftist has moved pretty far on the left of the spectrum, right? They've moved from actually being center left to, I would say, the average leftist is ever so slightly to the right of where a socialist would be. Ever so slightly, right? Because center leftists, they exist, but they're not nearly as existent as they used to be. There is centrists, but again, the reason why the left wins is because they've lied about the political spectrum basically, but that's a different story in and of itself. But I don't even know why I brought that up. But again, this is going to hurt things to a degree because it's not going to fix any of these problems. And when they recognize that, they're just going to do more damage. Like again, does anyone actually believe that this is going to, like, let's just say Biden through, a complete miracle wins re-election in 20, runs for re-election and wins. Like, does anyone really, or even a Democrat becomes president, a different one, whoever it's going to be in 2024, does anyone actually believe? And let's just say they can keep controlling the House and the Senate, so they can do, I mean, they can't do whatever they want, but they can do more than they normally would be able to do. Does anyone actually think that this is going to be the last tax hike? Like, you got to be absolutely and utterly insane. I mean, they still want to give people free health care, right? They're going to have to increase taxes in some way to give people free health care. And that's not even including all these states that are going downhill fast. You think California is going to cut taxes anytime soon? You think New York's going to cut taxes? No, they're going to increase it, which is only going to cause more people to leave, which is only going to cause them to want to increase it even more, right? So again, like, in the long run, this is only going to do damage, right? It's only going to do damage because it's not based in economic reality, right? And again, this is the thing I just can't stand about these people is that, again, they make it appear like rich people are paying less in taxes than the average person, which is a bold-faced lie. Because again, when people are investing money, they're investing money that's after tax, right? It's after tax. You only get to invest money that is post-tax income, meaning they've already been taxed at a higher rate than the average person, right? So they're lying. And this is the other thing too. They're raising it on people above $1 million too. I would bet money that it's only a matter of time until they say, yeah, now we're going to do anyone over 100,000, right? That's another thing I think will happen too. Um, but anyway, I've went on long enough. That's what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms if you haven't already. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. Again, I would very much appreciate whatever support I can get. But at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.